All right, it's currently 12:30 p.m. Dratnos and I just looked at the schedule for tomorrow. For some reason, him and I are both on the first shift tomorrow, so we got to get out of here. We've actually had a very interesting day. Forgeweaver Araz, incredibly difficult to boss. You know, we saw Stix Bunkjunker mid-tier wall last year. Forgeweaver Araz, similar-ish situation.
Yeah, it does feel... I would say it feels like a better Stix. It still has some of the downsides of Stix, but they're less muted, and it definitely has more upsides. The encounter, I think, has a lot more positive going for it.
Yeah, so there are bosses that are very poorly designed whenever they're hard. Stix Bunkjunker is certainly one of them. The pass-fail nature of the territorial bombshells, dumb boss. Now, Forgeweaver Araz...
It has pass-fail.
It has pass-fail with the ads, but I think it feels like you're a lot more in control with it. So we can take actually a look at what the best pull that Liquid had was like, and you see Forgeweaver Araz is fairly low. Now, this is the final intermission, which maybe isn't a good representation as to why this boss is hard, but a lot of the boss difficulty actually comes down to the manifestation ads. And whenever those ads are running towards the console or running towards the pylons, if they ever contact them, it just completely wipes your raid, which sets up this weird situation where you have to have a Mythic plus perfect CC chain on each and every single set, and the balance of DPS that you need on the boss, the ads, and there's an extra ad. You have to have a really good balance of DPS on all of those, and trying to calculate what the balance of DPS that you need. And you see even these
even that one off to the side there is going to take so many globals to try and fix. This boss ended up being a wipe at 1.5% on this pull. I have a suspicion that if that one manifestation hadn't had that happen to it, all right, look at it again. Now Hopefuls had to go over there, use a global on it to try and knock it into the right spot. If that hadn't happened, I think this boss might have died on this pull. I think it literally might have been that one manifestation that was the gap
Ursul's
here.
Vortex. Oh my god.
Yeah, and a troll vortex does happen. You're trying to stop it from going in, but then the grip ends up being trolled by it. And yeah, you can see 3% on the boss. They're trying, but they're getting gripped by so much strength at the end here. The boss is casting those knockbacks on Mythic as well. Super nasty.
Yeah, so nobody's killed Forgeweaver. It's kind of interesting. Liquid's here at 80 pulls. Echo's soon to
Whoa. Okay, hang on. We got some other guilds to talk about between Liquid and Echo. We've got ID, of course, in second, right? They got the silver medal right now, 52 pulls, 54%. But who's that in third? That's right. Pop-Tart Corn Dog in third right now.
The bronze medal of guilds, Pop-Tart Corn Dog, and led by Illadrat.
That's right.
702 item level.
The only VDH to be seen.
But yeah, no, basically Liquid's at 79 pulls. Echo's about to start their raid day. Where in the world are Method? Like, what's going on over there?
Yeah, as of right now, they're just also getting started with Method or with Mythic. They spent a bit more time in M+, which I think makes sense. Looking at this tier, especially if you're looking at Forgeweaver, you're gonna need all that M+ gear. If there's any upgrades you can get from Mythic Plus Keystone Dungeons, go get them, because that 1.5% wipe could have been a kill. I think Liquid have been sending some Vantus runes as well on this encounter, which...
I'm not shocked.
Yeah, I mean, it is a formidable mid-tier wall. If you are any guild in the world that is not Liquid, Echo, or Method, this boss is psycho difficulty.
Saw some Fat Truck S and ID people being a little bit disgruntled at the fact that they're not supposed to be in a Mythic and they're supposed to, in fact, be doing Mythic Plus.
Yeah, by far the best thing to do is to get all your upgrades out of M+. Like, my guild is pulling this boss because pulling really hard bosses is fun, but it would probably have been better for us to one-shot the first 3 bosses and then go do more M+ for the rest of our raid. I don't know.
I mean, personally, I'm a little bit conflicted. I think from a Race World First perspective, and I mean, obviously it's the Race World First recap, this boss is fucking sick.
It's sick for Race World First.
It's actually
it's one of those things.
so cool.
My opinion of this is 3 one-shot bosses at the start of the raid for high-end guilds is great, because for a lot of regular Mythic guilds, those are not one-shot bosses, and it's good to have that difficulty curve. It's good to have some overlap with Heroic Dimensius and Mythic First Few. A 5th from last boss that is this hard for the Race to World First is also great. We need some bosses such that this boss isn't the 5th from last boss. We need a boss 4 and a boss 5 between those first 3 and this boss. Something like Opulence in BOD. That was the perfect example of a difficult but not impossible 4th boss that some guilds could be wiping on, and other guilds could kill and move on to the bosses that are super hard that week.
I looked at Kalamazoo and I go, where are the 15 pull bosses?
Yeah,
where are they?
I mean, if you look at the pull counts of the 4th bosses, we had Rashanan 1, Stix over 100,
115.
This boss approaching 100. Where is the 15 full boss? That I liked the 15 full boss. 15 full boss is a good type of boss. Let's get those back in here.
For some reason, we're only allowed to have 1 or 100.
Yeah, which I like. If you're gonna make an 100 pull boss, this is a good one. This is fun. It's fun to play. It's gonna get nerfed a lot by gear. We talked about it being super punishing.
Yes.
They need to make it less punishing with some nerfs, right? There are some nerfs that need to happen to this boss for cutting edge guilds to have a reasonable time on it, but a lot of the difficulty is going to get reduced by gear, right? The ads are going to die faster, which means you need fewer CCs on them. You don't need as perfect M plus CC chains. All of the like the damage that is lethal from the soaks doesn't need everybody in it anymore. That's going to be the stamina check is going to make that a lot easier. And the ads dying faster means more damage shifts onto the boss faster, means the echoes dying faster, means you don't have to perfectly kill that first echo at the perfect time, but you can instead overkill it, underkill it. Either way, it'll work with extra gear.
What'd you think about the nerf that was actually applied to this boss? So very it's controversial anytime a raid boss gets buffed or nerfed. It always causes controversy.
And it's always better or worse for one team or the other whenever a boss does get nerfed. Although, in this case, I think if they hadn't done this nerf, I don't know when this boss is dying, there's probably over 200 pulls.
For context, oh my god, this was grief. I think we forgot about talking about this. For context, Liquid started their day 3-tanking, and they were 3-tanking because they were never going to be killing any of the Arcane Manifestation big ads. Or the Arcane Echoes, sorry. Yeah. The Arcane Echoes, the big ads. And what was going to go on was Boomy and Yips were going to be tanking them permanently, and that was going to be super grief. Blizzard goes, that's not happening. They nerfed them. They nerfed the Echo's HP by 40%, and they chopped 5% off the boss.
Right.
It controversial?
Yeah, I mean, it was done at a point in time where like Liquid's prog was 70% or something at that point. It's not like that caused them to get the kill, and in fact, they're going to bed tonight without the kill. So I think it probably hurt Liquid more that it happened this way, that they spent so much time frogging the pre-nerf version of this. They probably would have benefited. Well, I don't know what they would have benefited from, because I don't know if anybody was killing this in any reasonable time frame without the nerfs. But either way, I think that this was probably, if you had to do a nerf, this was probably the right size and the right timing to deliver this nerf. Obviously, it would have been better to launch it right the first time, but you can't always do that. Mythic bosses are hard to tune, right? That's one of the things that we've seen. And Blizzard, it's better that they err on the side of having to nerf it than having to buff it, because you can't buff it after it's been killed, right?
The thing with
Rashanan, they couldn't buff Rashanan.
The thing with nerfing bosses is the timing is what is the most important with the nerfs. No matter whether or not it's a nerf that's applied for Race World First Guilds, whether or not it's a nerf that's applied for Pop Tart Corn Dog, or whether or not it's a nerf that's applied
for Race World First Guild. You said the same thing twice.
Or whether or not it's a nerf that's applied for Kalamazi's guild.
Ooh. That is a different thing.
Race the World last, even.
Yeah, that's right. My suspicion is this is going to be a boss that I think it's going to go down well in the history of the Race to World First. The community sentiment on this boss, I think, is going to be contingent on the right nerfs getting applied probably this coming reset, because those first 3 bosses are not going to survive a lot of pulls for a lot of cutting edge guilds, and there are a lot of cutting edge guilds that are going to reach this boss and have no hope, even with like a couple more weeks of gear. I think
this boss is very similar to a hard version of this boss is very similar to Brood Twister Ovenax. Yeah, if you remember that from season 1.
It is less cringe than Brood Twister, but it's
difficult for the same reasons that Brood Twister was difficult.
Well, you don't have the kick cringe, which is nice, but other than that, it is somewhat similar.
But it's one of those things. It's contingent on nerf. I think that people complained about Bandit last season a lot too. Kind of a similar-ish vibe. Future tuning. So sometimes we see mid-tier walls. I think that Sanctum of Domination is a good example of, there was a mid-tier wall, and then the 2 following bosses
sometimes happens. Yeah, we were at Painsmith and we were like, this is going to be the greatest raid ever. Oh my god, what is Guardian of the First One's going to do? It's going to be so crazy.
Sludge Fist
last tier. We've got Painsmith here, and then that boss died insta. The Fate Scribe died insta. Kel'Thuzad died insta. So we don't know if this means that we're in for even more escalation, or if this is an outlier relative to the rest of the tier.
Well, I mean, what's your gut reaction? Do you think that Fractalus and Soul Hunters are going to tend to be a little bit easier, or do you think Fractalus and Soul Hunters are going to tend to be a bit more difficult than Forgeweaver?
My suspicion is that they'll be a little bit easier than this boss, but probably not by much. I think we're probably looking at similar difficulty on those ones.
Okay, interesting. I think my gut reaction is probably that it's going to be...
I think Soul Hunters actually probably is going to end up being pretty easy for Race to World First guilds, because like the kind of difficulty that fight has scales really nicely when you have 20 sick players. I feel like that's going to be a hard fight with 15 good players and 5 sketchy people that are hard to kick because they're your friends. Got one of those in my guild. Parse Rogue. Parse of US Tichondrius.
I think Fractalus...
He's not actually anybody's friend, though, but hard to kick for some reason. He just refuses to get kicked. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to
He's pressed Cloak of Shadows.
That's right.
I think Fractalus is kind of one of those bosses that's hard to tune well for a race to roll first guild because it's the most similar to a patchwork fight that I've ever seen. It's been a really long time.
But it does, so it can be a patchwork with, it's hard to make a fight that has no mechanical difficulty and a tight DPS check be at all fun, right?
Yes.
But it can have, this fight is going to have a hard HPS check with the current numbers on those mythic wall explosions. So that can at least be like optimizing simultaneous survival and damage, even if there's not intricate dodging and stuff, which there's some swirlies to dodge, but you know, you're not really making any gameplay decisions about like where to go and why. You have a weak aura doing that for you. But the combination of damage and survivability optimizing on that fight could be pretty fun.
Yeah. I think we're gearing up for a really interesting race. I mean, Forgeweaver, this is cool. If the race continues to be this cool, I think we're in for a great race.
It looks sick as well. Yeah. That last phase. My one gripe with this phase from the Race to World First perspective is we don't spend enough time in that last phase because it is a beautiful phase.
Okay. I'm gonna be honest. I don't really care too much about Fractalus and Soul Hunters. I'm so stoked for Nether King Salhadar. I think that fight is going to rock.
Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna be back tomorrow. I think that my prediction is that we're gonna see Echo enter Mythic and have decent progression. Do you think they're killing?
I think there's a good chance. I think a lot of the liquid progress is extremely yoinkable. As somebody who has yoinked a lot of liquid progress and made a lot of progress very quickly on this boss, it is very much a fight where the Trailblazers have done a lot of work for us. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we wake up to Echo in the lead as we did on Sprocketmonger at the end of the first reset in Liberation of Undermine, which
that would be a huge slingshot to have that start on a Saturday.
At that time, when we were recording these videos back then, we talked about how Echo had never lost after taking the lead before the end boss. They did that tier, so
yep, that streak was broken. The streak was broken.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll have to see. See you tomorrow.